Uh-oh.
Good morning, Anik.
RV,
What?
where are you?
My boat.
Oh, I didn't know you had a boat.
Yep. It's my little hobby I have.
That's really cool. That is really cool. That
Yeah,
sounds like a lot of fun.
it is. It's a lot of fun, a lot of work. It's my big hobby.
Well, my parents have a boat and they spend a lot of time on their boat, but it's like my stepdad, he's like always like, okay, I'm going to the boat. I gotta work on some stuff on the boat, gotta do something on the boat.
Yeah, I do the same thing. Adrian gets kind of annoyed. I'm like, oh, it's the summertime, so I can work. I mean, when I try to work up here, I can. I bought one of these
That's good. That's good.
little MiFi hubs, so I have internet up here, and I fine.
Hello. I know it's pretty relaxing to be on a boat.
It is. It is.
We wish we were on a boat, right? Cynthia? We wish we were on a boat somewhere. Right. You don't even have to go on a cruise. You got your own cruise all the time.
I got everything I need here, so it's good. It's unfortunately it's raining and cold outside, but the thing's got heat, so it's 70 degrees and comfy in here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, I'm gonna hop in. A lot of people are gonna watch the replay this week. They let me know. So there's been a lot of positive growth in the group, from promotions to, people opening up new locations to getting new contracts and things like that. So we're still going to put everything up in here and get going. One, how have you guys been doing as far as your goals, what you're looking to accomplish, life, everything? How has it been going?
It's been going pretty well, actually. We're getting closer to launch date, which is good. Had a little bit of adversity that we're pushing through, and I think now the biggest thing that I spoke with my manager about is time management. Now because we're in like the transitionary phase with my career right now, it's having to wear many hats and be able to balance everything at the same time. So that's one thing I'm working on right now, because especially now with all the additional responsibilities, I still need to make sure that I am, being as productive as I possibly can in each facet of that without, sacrificing performance in any, specific sector.
I posted in the group a video about how to plan out your roles and how to plan your time based on your roles. Go back and watch it if you haven't watched it yet. And it's really helpful, because the higher you go in life and the more you get closer and closer to your vision, the more responsibilities you're going to have and the more things you're going to have to delegate. And the more having those time periods really together and having your schedule really together is going to be extremely important. Okay. Because this is what happens. People will open up a business, or they'll get started on an organization or a new venture or whatever it is, right? And they'll put everything into that. And the next thing you know, they have all of those things together, right? But then their home life goes down. And correct. So next thing you know, you've created, and we see it all the time where we've seen it in movies or TV or whatever, where you'll have these people who grow these massive organizations, but like their families hate them.
Right.
Did you see that? Did you read the letter from, what is his name with Apple, who passed away?
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs, the letter that he wrote to his family after, right before he passed away. It was basically like an apology in a sense about, the relationships that they did not have, the connection that he wasn't able to forge. And basically talking about, after looking back at his life, what was most important. And of course, he's a legend in the business world, a legend in Apple, a legend in all these different things. But how much does that matter if the people closest to you don't share that same opinion of you? And that comes down to really managing not only your time, but managing your roles. And so in the video, what you do is you write down the roles that you play, you know what I mean, from top to bottom, whether it's from son, daughter, husband, wife, mother, father, you know. I put on mine healthy woman, you know, coach, business owner, every single one of your roles. And then what you do is next to those roles, you write down what would make you have like an A+ in that role. And you can either do it for the week or for the month. I do mine for the month, just because I need to plan that far ahead in the month in order for me to see success in any way. Plus there's like all these different moving parts and things change. And if I drop the ball in any area and I'm not planned out for the month, or if I used to have a tendency to double schedule where people will say, hey, you know, can we do blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh yeah, sure. Because in my mind, it's like, oh, why wouldn't I? Not realizing I had some other thing planned at that time. And now I'm either a liar to one person or flaky to another, or organization or whatever. So you write down what would it take to have like an A+ in that area, write down the specific actions, and then you go in your planner and you schedule all of those things first.
Okay.
And it's literally, you have to literally do it for every role in your life. Like if you're mentoring someone, right? Even there's been times where I've written my role and just know like, hey, in this season, I'm specifically mentoring this person. What does it mean for me to be a great mentor for this person?
Okay.
Right? Or what does it mean to be a great friend? Because your priorities are going to change based on the seasons, right? To where maybe in one season, it's mostly about business. And then maybe in another season, it's like, look, business is going well. Let me spend some extra time with my family. That's why it's important for you to write these roles out every month and then reorganize them and prioritize your time based on that. So that way it's like no stone is being left unturned. Hey, Olivier. So that way no stone is being left unturned. And when I'm telling you, it helps you to just go about your day with less anxiety, and you don't feel the guilt of dropping the ball on certain people, things, roles, responsibilities, or sometimes just dropping the ball on being aware.
Right.
You know, I even write in my roles, like part of what I do is managing data and managing people's growth. So sometimes it may not be just me talking to them. It may be saying something like, okay, let me review so-and-so reviewed sent in their goals, or they wrote out their vision, or they took the course or whatever. Let me follow up to see, you know, what they've done, how far they are, you know, in it, and to make sure that they're staying on track. That's another role.
Right.
So just go through that and it'll clean itself up. And it takes, if you do it for like at least 2 or 3 months, you'll be in the habit of it and you'll see it all come together.
Okay. Yeah, I know that you mentioned the seasons. Like I know like people come to our seasons for come into our life for a season, a reason, or a lifetime.
Right.
When you're talking about, you know, because that's actually one of the things I'm working with right now. I got a newer guy on my team and he's going through some adversity, right? He's taking a new step and he got kicked in the teeth, proverbially speaking, this first week, him getting these additional responsibilities. So I'm really trying to work on that, mentoring him. When you're talking about setting your schedule and, you know, your time blocking for these seasons, what do you categorize as a season? Is it like a specific length of time? Is it until a goal is accomplished? What are you categorizing as, you know, a season or a specific length of time?
It's just being like aware of where you are and where people are.
Yeah.
And you can tell when like it's a specific season for something, because it'll feel like you'll get a large influx of people or situations that are kind of similar. Right. You know what I mean? So for instance, when someone first opens a business, right? That's a huge developmental season, you know, or you first start a new organization, which is where you're at right now. That's a huge developmental season. meaning you're gonna be in a place to where you have new employees, new this, new that. You're gonna have to pour a lot of time, into people who are brand new.
Right.
So that doesn't mean you can't execute, but the development has to happen in order for the execution to really reach its full potential.
Okay.
So I'll even give you a non-business example. I also teach dance, right? So, and I teach dance in Atlanta, a dance called Kizomba. Right now, Atlanta is in a season where there's a lot of new dancers. People who've never danced before, don't know a lot about the culture, don't know a lot about anything. And myself and another teacher have kind of come together and said, hey, we've got to do a lot of work. And she's good at it. Thanks, Olivier. We've got to do a lot of work to give people a strong foundation if we want this culture and this to last in the city. Why? Because we have a large influx of people who don't know any of the things that we know. So that's a season. And then eventually that season will change from, pouring in a lot of time to getting people good to events and like things like that you can participate in once you have, a certain level of knowledge and desire. So you're going to know kind of where your people are if you look at trends and where you are. And based on what you're seeing, you want to take actions that are consistent with whatever season your business and your life is in.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And it's just different. I remember in the beginnings, in entrepreneurship for me, that season was just putting in time, wake up, sleep, whatever, with my employees, with this, with that, because it was a building season and a development season. And also another thing to think about too is, every time you're building an organization or even building a life, or anything you're trying to build, what you're really building is a community. And so there's two things that have to happen in order for that to be successful. One, you have to have the community itself. And two, you have to create room for connection within that community.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And sometimes that's the part that we miss is, the community. And when I say community, I mean like a community of good people who have, potential, who are invested, who are committed, who want to see positive growth, right? So you have to have the community and then you have to build a connection with it. And so if you're in the early stages of mentorship, then that's typically part of what has to happen is the connection.
Okay.
And all of us are in a position to where we have to, no matter what you're doing, what type of organization you're in, what you're looking to achieve, we have to go through the process of rebuilding the connection because we just spent 2.5+ years not connecting.
As we work the best.
Yeah, we just spent 2.5 years not connecting. Mm-hmm. And so not only is it we haven't been connecting, but it's also, people aren't used to doing it. So which kind of goes into, our topic for today. So really the reason I wanted to develop this topic or to talk about this is trust has been the sneaky underlying factor that I found have held a lot of people back. And so when we think about the word trust, a lot of times we think about being unguarded, right? But being unguarded is just something that comes after the trust is present. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, because you have faith in whatever that person says they're going to do.
Exactly.
And of their word, they stand by what they say. You have faith in them. Yeah.
Right. But what I've noticed that what most leaders miss out on when they're trying to build something or they're building and they're trying to take it to the next level is the fact that they may not truly and deeply trust themselves.
That's what.
Right? And we always think of trust as just telling the truth, or I trust this other person, where we always think there's another party involved. But really, when it comes down to it, it's, do I trust myself? And trust isn't necessarily the opposite of being vulnerable or being open. Trust just comes in belief, right? You know, and do you really believe in yourself? Now, most of us can do it to a certain degree, right? But the challenge comes when and the reason that we trust ourselves to a certain degree is we typically trust ourselves in the areas in which we've already seen and conquered. You know what I mean? But that's not when you have to trust yourself. You really have to trust yourself in the areas that you haven't conquered yet. The things you haven't seen, the large goals that make you a little afraid, you know, that seem scary, that are different, that will stretch you, that will give you more responsibility, the things that could really make an impact on yourself and others. But that's why, you know, we were all put here. So, and really the problem is, you know, we have a lot of people who are 10s and 15s and 100s in a scale of 1 to 10, and they walk around doing 5-level work and having 5-level impact. And it's not because they don't have the potential. It's not because they don't want to. It's because there's a lack of trust within themselves, or the trust that they have for themselves or about themselves isn't at the scale needed to accomplish the goal. Does that make sense? So like the bigger the vision, the more you got to trust yourself to execute and trust your abilities and have faith that you need to get it done. And if it's not there, you're going to miss out. So yes.
I have a question about that specifically.
Yes.
When you're talking about trust in oneself, so let's say boiling down that you feel like that you can get the job done. How do you go about balancing that when, you know, whatever goal that you have relies on the success of other people, like it has to be a community, right? So like I know, like if I have a task, like if I want to fill up this cup of coffee, I can go do it myself. I know I'm going to be able to do it. Doesn't matter if the pot's a mile away, right? But if I have to rely on X number of people, how do you go about balancing that when there are other hands in the pot, proverbially speaking?
Well, let me ask you this. What do we do in life that doesn't require a community? When it really boils down to it.
Self-care, maybe? I don't know.
But even with self-care, right? When someone does self-care, what do we talk about? What equates to being self-care?
It's a glass of bourbon and a cigar, but I mean.
but guess what though? Someone had to make the cigar.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay. People, it involves people.
It still involves people, right? You trust that whoever you bought the cigar from didn't put, you know, I don't know, some sort of poison in it, right? You trusted that they did whatever it is that they say they were going to do. You trust that the bourbon is going to be the quality that they said it was, and it wasn't like bathtub bourbon. You know what I'm saying? I know that's gross to think about, right? Yeah. Every time we go and buy a product, there's a community behind it that had to make that work, you know? Even when we talk about self-care, you know, maybe you put on music, someone had to create the song, someone had to do something. So everything, and that's the part we forget, is everything that we do in some form or fashion required people to come together for a common goal and to execute.
Okay.
I think we've just been living under this falseness that anything that we're doing it on our own.
Okay.
I think you also need to be able to communicate, have a relationship. So if you have a relationship with someone, you can truly be able to delegate because they know they have a relationship with you. They know what the end goal is going to be. Then they'll do it. But if you just give them a task and not just say do it and do it in a authoritarian, not try to have a relationship. Majority of the time, people will not do it.
99% of the time.
Yeah, have a relationship with them. They'll say, "Oh, okay, well, I'll do it. You know, no problem." Or they even do it without you even asking because you have that relationship with them.
Right, and we're going to get into that because part of the trust is trusting that you have enough influence to make a difference with the people around you.
Yes.
And that you have the ability to influence them well enough to get the job done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're referring to the different levels of leadership, like transformational leaders, stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Right. But even when you're talking about that, you have to trust the fact that you have the ability to influence people on that level.
Okay. All right.
So these are the things that will show you that you need to further develop the trust within yourself. One, if you hesitate to make decisions, especially the tough decisions, you got to work on your trust a little bit. Number two, you have negative self-talk when it comes down to making the next big move. Meaning you're talking yourself out of it just as much as you're trying to talk yourself into it. If you have negative self-talk. Number three, if you have a tendency to self-sabotage. If you have a tendency to self-sabotage, you have some trust issues within yourself. Number four, procrastination. Procrastination is another way of saying, I'm not sure. Now, some of it is just a bad habit, right? Sometimes procrastination is when we're too either distracted or disorganized or things like that. But I found that especially for leaders or people who are trying to build something, right? Procrastination is a form of escapism. I'm nervous, I'm scared, therefore I'm really pushing off engaging this because whatever this thing is really scares me. Number five, you give up before the fight even gets tough. Giving up before the fight gets tough. Number six, you won't engage in your big vision fully. Or you procrastinate on that. Things that you know in the depths of your soul you want to do, you want to accomplish, you want to see happen, and you won't engage in it. And these are also things to where we talked about if you're managing a group of people and a team, these are things to also look for, to where, you know, maybe you may see something that someone else is doing, and instead of saying, why are you doing that? It may make you say, this person doesn't trust themselves. And it will make you ask a different question. Why don't you trust yourself? Do you trust yourself? Right? And so how does it impact you? One, it becomes difficult to attract the right people. We believe that other people don't see us and they see us so clearly. Meaning, if you don't trust yourself with what you're doing, no one else is going to trust you either. And you may think that you're hiding it, but no, they can see your hesitation. They can see you second guess your decisions or roll back on the decision that you made. You know, they can see you disengaged. They can see you playing small. They can see all of those things, even if they don't mention it, because most of the time, these are things that people will notice and will never, ever mention to you. They'll just see it as a lack of leadership of some sort, right? Other things and other ways that it impacts you is it makes you beat yourself up. Anytime you don't do the things that you say you want to do and you desire to do, all it does is it makes yourself resentful of yourself. And what it does is it makes you envious of others. Why? Well, you know, envy just comes from, you know, or resentment, it just comes from envy. You envy the things that you see other people do that you're not doing. That's how haters are created. Haters are created not because they just have it in their spirit. They become envious of what they see others do that they have not yet done. And most of the time, unfortunately, there are things that they haven't even made a full attempt to engage in, right? So you don't want to be in that position where you're beating yourself up, you're becoming envious of others just because you don't trust yourself to do whatever it is that you've set out to do. And also, some of the other results that happen and how it impacts you is you will lose because you won't make the necessary decisions to get yourself ahead. Where I see this happen, especially with leaders, is they're afraid to fire people. They're afraid to fire people. They're afraid to kick people out of their lives. They're afraid to make a very tough decision because they're unsure if they'll be able to unwind the decision that they've made. And it's just a sign that you may not trust yourself. It might be kicking that relationship to the curb. It may be, getting that person out of your business. It could be, fire, and sometimes it's just firing someone, a vendor of some sort, right? But they're all signs that you have a lack of trust. So really, when we think of a lack of trust, right? A lack of trust just comes down to inconsistency. That's what creates a lack of trust. Now, we're able to point it out in others, but when you don't trust yourself, it's because even you are aware of your own inconsistencies. And even it's like your spirit and your soul just take notes of that. And it leaves a trail of memory of the inconsistencies you've had. And so when it's time to do something new, you become aware of those inconsistencies and you're like, I don't know if I should do this. I don't know if I'm ready, right? And so it can be an inconsistency in values, or shall I say values versus behavior. This is what I believe in, but this is what I've done. It can be an inconsistency in attitude. This is what I want, but this is how I feel and act on a day-to-day basis. It can be an inconsistency in motivation, which is, I think, the number one thing that holds people back, and they don't trust themselves because they feel like they have to be motivated to do it to get the job done. When really you have to just do it, even when you're not motivated to do it. And that still will build up your trust of, hey, I'm going to show up for myself even when I don't feel like I should. I have the ability to push myself past how I feel or what I feel like doing, past my motivation. It can be inconsistency in conduct. I've seen people self-sabotage because they know that their behavior hasn't been consistent with what it is that they want to accomplish. Hey, I don't trust myself to do that because although I'm running this great business, I'm looking to build my business, I'm still having trouble with the self-discipline of not getting trashed every night. I've seen that. I've coached people like that have lots of potential, but they don't trust themselves because their conduct is inconsistent with what they're looking to build. And it's created a distrust in themselves, which turned into self-sabotage. And then there's the inconsistency in words and actions. Now, these are all things that we recognize in other people, and we say, I don't trust this person because they have inconsistency in their values. They're this person this day and another person the next day, or their attitude changes. One day they're really cool and they feel like they're on your side. The next day they're not, or motivation. One day they're acting like they really want to do this. Oh, with you, we're going to do this. And the next day it's like they don't even show up. Conduct, same thing, right? They talk all this big stuff and then they can't be on time. They can't act right. They show out at company events. They do all of these different things, right? And then inconsistency of what they say they're going to do versus what actually gets done. But the same way we're able to easily point it out in others, we don't realize that we are subconsciously pointing it out in ourselves as well. And we take note of our own inconsistencies as well. And so some of these things, and some of the lack of trust could also come from past failures. Hey, I wasn't able to do this in the past, and this is what happened the last time I tried this. And so it makes you have a lack of trust about your abilities to execute this time. but we're given the test over and over and over again until we're able to pass it. And really, you know, I don't know if they do this anymore, but I remember when I was a kid, especially with specific teachers that I had, we had to do corrections. So let's say you had a math test and you did poorly on the test, or even if you did well, you had to go back. And I had teachers that would make us go back and fix the problems that we missed. It wasn't like, oh, you got an F, sorry. You know, it was, hey, you failed this. Today, you have to go home and redo all the problems that you got wrong and turn it back in tomorrow. So it just ended up to where the things that you failed just equated to being like, okay, this is new information. And all this is doing is shining a light on what it is that I have not conquered yet. And we're going to put you in a position to where you're going to have to conquer it. But there's no such thing as falling behind. You're falling behind today and you're getting back on it tomorrow. And we would literally have to go back and correct it until we had everything right. And what ended up happening was we ended up being in a place of mastery because you had so many times to just continue to work on it until things make sense. We don't really attack things like that anymore. We kind of have to get back to that of saying, hey, it's not a failure, it's an opportunity for mastery. Number 2, lack of follow through. All the things that we started and we never finished are reasons why we don't trust ourselves. Any of you guys have experiences with that? Things you've started and you haven't finished. We talked about the negative self-talk, right? Where you're talking yourself out of things the moment that you decide to start them. And the reason that happens is the moment you decide to do something, you become aware of 1, everything that it takes to get it done, and 2, everything you don't have yet. And the list of everything you don't have yet oftentimes stops us from engaging. So it's like, if you have someone that's like, you know what, I want to get my real estate license. The moment they say, I want to get my real estate license, the first thing they think of is, oh man, I got to pay to go to school. It's going to be this amount of time. Then I got to spend this amount of time doing this. Then I have to do this. Then I have to do this. And and they have this long list of things that need to happen and that maybe they haven't mentally prepared themselves for, and they question whether or not they want to take it on. And then next thing you know, they never engage in the first place. But the people who get it done are people who just do it anyway. And they take it one step at a time. Like, look, this isn't going to happen overnight, but what I can do is at least take the first step. Another thing, a reason why we don't trust ourselves is we have too many self-imposed limitations. There was a time where I was like, oh, I can't do this because of this, and I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that, or whatever, and not realizing that all of these limitations that I had were things that were rules that I created. This person's not going to allow this. This is going to happen, blah, 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 blah. And I was giving myself limitations based on conversations I hadn't had yet, money I hadn't tried to acquire yet. You know, and let me tell you, I can't tell you the amount of people that I talk to that I'm like, I don't have any funding for this. Did you try? Did you go to the bank? Did you apply for the grant? Did you at least try to get the loan? Did you figure that part out yet? No. Well, then no, it's not that you don't have the funding. You haven't sought out the funding. You haven't sought it out yet. So don't say you don't have it. Say, I haven't sought it out. And that's a whole, that adds a completely different perspective to the equation, right? So that's an idea of what a self-imposed limitation is. Allowing too many outside voices in. Don't allow criticism from people who also haven't followed their dreams. If they haven't taken the step to take their life to the next level and to accomplish their purpose, their vision, don't allow that in. You know, I don't take advice from people, from non-risk takers. If you don't ever take risk, I don't, it's not advice for business and vision and, you know, that next thing. If you never take a risk, I can't take advice from you. You know what I mean? You're still sitting on the porch. And lastly, if you have had a past history of bad or poor decisions, which that's easier to overcome. You just need some accountability and coaching. So after listening to this list, did any of you guys, any of this resonate with you? If you want to share, it's the time to share, if any of it resonates with you.
No, absolutely. I think the one thing I liked what you said specifically in terms of people sometimes will give up the fight before it gets tough. I think, you know, no matter what line of work you're in, you know, it's funny, we had a meeting in the office about this yesterday about like the different phases of momentum. And, you know, initially starting to build that momentum, you know, it's the hardest part, you know, getting the, you know, no matter what career field, whether it's music, whatever, the initial getting your, you know, foot in the door or getting momentum, getting your feet off the ground is always the most toughest part. And then once you establish that momentum, you know, it's almost like I want to keep going because I'm fearful of what I went through to get to that point, and I don't want to go through that again. So that's
right. We don't. That is so true. And I remember there's been several times where it's time like, okay, I want to restart this. I want to do this. And just when you understand the pain of building momentum, you're like, do I want to go through that again? Or do I just want to surf through life? I'm sorry, the pain and the expense of building momentum, because it's expensive. You know, whether it's through investing in ads, investing in your people, marketing, supplies, whatever it is, right? The process of building momentum is expensive and it's an investment. It's like, do I want to do that? Very, very true. So let's talk about the next step is, what do you do about it? How do you rebuild your self-trust? And the first thing is, one, you have to be really honest with yourself about if there is a lack of trust and where it stemmed from. If there is a lack of trust and where it stems from. For me, I had a bad habit of not finishing. Starting things and not finishing them. And it got to the point to where eventually I had to make a stance. It's like, look, there will be nothing new that you begin until you finish the old thing that you set out to do, period.
Hey, about that, Yannick,
yes.
Isn't it, because sometimes I see that it's okay to abandon something or an activity if you realize that it no longer serves you. So I used to feel really guilty about starting something and not finishing, whether it's like, so it's a combination of all the things, right? So it could be at home where I start building some shelves, like for example, right? And then I don't finish it. It could be organizing my books in my bookshelf. It could be, so I do things at home. And then at work, same thing. I start building a document and I don't finish it. So everything like this, they come back, or I start helping a friend with something like reviewing their resume and I don't finish it. So everything like this, like you're right, combined, they make me think that, oh, I should even go for this position, higher position, because I'm gonna sign up for it, and then once I start doing it, I'm gonna be like, oh, I don't want this thing anymore. you know what I mean? So you're right. It really affects my trust in myself. Like when it comes time to make big decisions or decisions that can improve my life, but at the same time. And I deal with this guilt a lot. But at the same time, isn't it good like to be able to identify things that don't serve you and quit?
Well, this is where the trust part comes from. Is one, the start. So one of the problems that I had to solve within myself is not starting things if I don't see the purpose in it. So one, and I don't know if you've taken the course before, but I'll send it to you. Figure out what your vision is and get very clear about what it is you're here to do and what you're here to accomplish and what role you want to play and you're deciding to play in people's lives. And really, it got down to now, I don't engage in anything that doesn't do one of three things. If it's not consistent with my purpose, right? And that could be my purpose in business, my purpose in friendships, relationships, whatever. If it's not in alignment with my purpose, if it doesn't give me a sense of peace, or if it doesn't contribute towards my sense of play, meaning things that just make me feel alive and enjoy stuff and things like that. Like dance definitely contributes towards my sense of play. So those things are typically a yes. So the first thing is I'm very clear about what it is I will and will not engage in based upon what my vision is. So I start off being able to say yes or no to things that I know are out of alignment with my vision. So people come to me all the time with opportunities, right? Oh man, you could do this, or this could be great, and this could be great. And some of those opportunities are amazing, but I say no to many of them because they're out of alignment with my purpose and my vision. And whenever it's out of alignment with that, I know that I'm going to end up abandoning the project anyway, in some form or fashion, whether I abandon it because I didn't put forth a full effort, whether I abandon it because I get bored, whether it just doesn't work out. Because if something is out of alignment with your purpose or your vision, it's not going to work anyway, right?
Right.
So first is say no, but if you did say yes, you just have to complete it just to make sure that one, you're keeping your word to that person, but also getting in the habit of keeping your word to yourself, because it does build up that lack of trust. And when it comes time to do something that really does matter, you'll still have those lingering, issues with distrust. So just getting in the habit of being a finisher. In the beginning, it's hard, right? But it's almost like an exercise where now I force myself to finish my projects, to finish whatever that is, right? And what it does is when I'm finishing something I never should have started in the first place, it gives me fuel to say no to the next thing I should have never done. Because I'm like, no, I can't. I'm sorry. Or it'll make me say, you know what, this is something that should be done, but I don't think it has to be done by me, and I will send someone a referral.
Gotcha.
This person is really great at it. And guess what? I'm going to send that person to someone to where maybe that thing is a part of their purpose. Like if it's, rewriting or looking over someone's resume, hey, I'm going to send you to this person because that's what they do and they're passionate about it. And they're going to get way better results than what I am.
Understood.
And just do that, because like you said, it'll keep you from doing those next big things out of distress. So identify what those things are and then put a plan together to be the antithesis of that. And even if it's a small things, which is funny, I wrote this down, is take the small actions that showed yourself that. You don't have to start off with the big things. For me, finishing is just like completing, like you said, all the little projects at the house that I started. To me, it could be as simple as folding laundry. Like today, I don't feel like it, but I'm going to be in there folding laundry.
So yeah, I'm kind of like, well, there's nobody that I know in here. So I moved here in May last year. I still have boxes.
Finishing. So there's everything that creates distrust in our lives. There are signs all around us of what it is. And it doesn't start off in the big things. It starts off in the small things. Right. This little thing here, this little thing there, what have you. So mine was finishing. Now it's engaging and starting, right?
Mhm.
Where I've gotten so good at finishing that now it's like, whoo, am I ready to start this project?
Right.
So it's doing those things. So the first step to doing that is identifying where the distrust is coming from and attack it and create a list. So for you, it may be unpacking, this or that. So create a list. And the second thing is create a line in the sand.
What does that mean?
A line in the sand means, like when I said, I will not start another project until I have fully completed X, Y, Z.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I literally have created a line in the sand of me not doing anything else outside of finishing XYZ projects, which I've finished now. But now I've taken it to the next level and saying, I want to get these projects to this level before I start anything else. And I don't care if it's the juiciest opportunity in the world, I've created a line in the sand about it. And what's happened was the things that I have created a line in the sand about have come to fruition, and those opportunities didn't go away. Because if it was for me, it's still going to be around during the season. It doesn't mean that I need to jump onto it immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? So that's how you create a line in the sand. And basically it's just saying, creating a very strict rule. And some people, it may be something about their health. You creating a line in the sand for some people. I had a client that said, you know what, I'm creating a line in the sand. No more soda, no more sugar, no more alcohol, period.
Oof, no more sugar.
Right. And she went through the house and she threw out every can of soda, every bottle of alcohol, every bottle of wine, every snack, everything. And I said, look, that first step was the hardest, but the second step is what are you going to do when? What are you going to do when you really want that sugar, you really want the soda, you really want the wine, you really want this, right?
Mm-hmm. And
then we really put forth a plan to do it, to where it's like, okay, here's some things that are still sweet but aren't sugary. Now you got to keep, raisins in your house. You have to keep, all of these different things that you're going to do instead of that. I also found out that coconut oil reduces sugar cravings by like 65%. So if you just literally take a spoonful of coconut oil and eat it, it will reduce your sugar cravings. There's something in coconut oil that that reduces that.
Okay, perfect. Hey, I don't mean to take most of the time, but about this though, because I've tried this all the time, like either with exercising or working out or something else, like keeping my bed like clean before I go home. Before I leave home. But whenever there's like a drastic change, like line in the sand, like you said, like me coming to my house and then trashing everything that's sugary, sweet, whatever it is, it's too drastic. And then I will always go back to it at some point.
Well, you got to figure out your why. Maybe it's not that important to you. I don't make drastic changes about things that I don't feel like are destiny altering, or things that I just really feel strongly and convicted about.
Gotcha. Can I chime in on that actually?
Yeah.
So Oliver, right? So I actually had it actually happen to me, like similar type of situation where, for me personally, like what you said, Yannick, I'm sorry, where I something drastic has to happen for me to make a change. So like for me, I'm currently on a weight loss journey. And what set me over the bar was I literally had a gallbladder attack and had to go to the hospital, and it was all attributed to poor diet, not exercising, drinking way too much caffeine, and my body literally shut down.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was, the doctor said, he just said, you're 28 years old, your body can't keep up with this. So something like that, different things motivate different people. I'll be the first to admit I'm motivated by fear. And fear of having to go back to the hospital because of these little things. And you're right, it's a big goal, but I just think, okay, what are little actionable items that I can do? So let's say I have a drink every night after work. That's 5 drinks a week. Why don't we cut it back to 3 drinks a week? And then the week after that, cut it back to 2. Or, I like, let's say you like your mocha frappuccino, whatever latte from Starbucks, that's 500 calories. Okay. Right. But like, and you go that 3 times a week. Why don't you save it for 2 times a week to make it a reward? And that's how I gradually dialed it back, because you're
Right.
cold turkey, anything, you're right. It's just,
It's
your
hard.
body, it goes into system shock. Like it's just,
Yeah,
at least that's
exactly.
what worked for me. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know.
So thank you for sharing. So, and then that's exactly what I meant, because every time I try something like this, I'm good. Like, for example, I'm gonna work out just an example, every
That's
single
hard.
day, every single day for the next, like 10 weeks. And I'm successful maybe in 5 weeks. And then I start like, oh, I don't need to work out right now. And then I lose that momentum. This is the word I was looking for. I lose momentum very easily when I do drastic changes.
So
But
I will say this though.
Mhm.
I don't like making drastic changes if I don't have to, but I also change my verbiage behind it. Because when you say I don't need to work out, you're not saying something to yourself that's not accurate.
Mhm.
You may not need to do it in that moment,
Mhm.
right? But you
Mhm.
have to say, I don't need to work out, but I'm going to anyway because my goal is blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
Or if you
Got
say, hey, I'm going to work out every day. Why every day?
Mhm.
Are you trying to run a marathon? Or do you just want to be healthy?
Right. Right.
If you just want to be healthy, you only need to work out maybe 3-4 times a week.
Right. I got you. And then it's like you were saying earlier, for something like this, if I go to the doctor and the doctor say, hey, if you don't do this, you're gonna die. If you don't stop eating this, you're gonna die. Then yeah, I think that's gonna be like, fear
Right.
will motivate me a lot. But I'm trying to get to a point where I know there are diabetes people have diabetes in my family, on both sides. So I'm trying to get to a point where I don't need that wake up call
So here's an exercise.
to do things like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, here's an exercise. And I actually learned this at a Tony Robbins thing, right? Where literally you think about the things because if you have the urge to do these things, there's a reason why. There's something consciously or subconsciously in you that there's a reason why. And what you have to do in order to not get to the pain of correction, like Pete was talking about being hospitalized about it, what you have to do is sit down and literally envision and fast forward in your mind what's going to happen if the way that you live continues. So it's like, if I continue to not follow through with things, what is going to be the next 40 years of my life going to look like? What is me as a 80-year-old woman going to look back at me now and say, is she going to be happy with what I'm doing now? Or maybe 2 years from now. Or you can say, with my current eating habits, my current exercise, if I fast forward the same behavior 20 years forward, what is life going to look like? And a lot of times you can trick your brain into feeling the pain of that without having to go through it. And that's the reason why we don't make good decisions, is because we don't like to look at where our decisions are going to lead us into. One, literally the part of, I don't like what I saw. I did okay, Olivier. And so when you do it, you have to feel that pain. And then that's when self-will has to kick in, because nothing can replace self-will. Like, you guys can listen to this call and all this other stuff, but it's your self-will that has to be the one to enforce changes. Now, I can hold you guys accountable. Like, I'll check in with you about your diet and exercise and things like that. But at a certain point, your self-will has to kick in. And then you have to do what they call putting on your big girl and big boy panties. And the reason I say that is we're driven by our conscious, right? And our conscious, our subconscious, whatever. That doesn't develop past the age of 8. So literally, and when people say, like, I'm getting older on the outside, but I still feel young. The reason, and that's for a good reason, because you always have time to do whatever, and you want to still feel young. And it's because your consciousness didn't develop past the age of 8. So the things that got you excited at age of 8, you're just doing the adult versions of that now. I used to love to run around the woods when I was a kid, and I still like to hike and all that stuff now as an adult. So when it comes to things, and our 8-year-old selves don't like to be disciplined. We didn't like to eat our vegetables. You know, we exercised if it dealt with play, but we weren't necessarily going at it in gym class. Well, I wasn't anyway. You know, and you can think about what you were like at that time, and you probably aren't very different. You've just added more rules and you've added more responsibilities and you've matured, but that drive of what I feel like doing is still 8 years old. So like, you can't control your first thought, but you can control your second. So you can't control the fact that you said, I don't need to work out today. That's going to come to your mind. But you can absolutely control the second thought, which is, I don't need to work out today, but I'm going to because I want to be healthy. And I want to live and be in full health, you know, even in my advanced age, you know?
Yeah.
And I still want to be mobile. I still want to be actively participating in life. So if you don't want to live through the pain of correction from a huge event, which does allow people to go cold turkey, then put yourself through what you see now and then create rules. Another thing that you can do, so we talked about taking action on the small promises. Number 3 is find someone to hold you accountable. You know what? You guys are in this group. If you haven't joined the group, I'll put it in there. You know, and put your goals in there. Share your goals to where we can hold each other accountable, right? But find someone to hold you accountable. Do you know that studies show that people are 74% more likely to follow through with something that someone else is holding them accountable to? But that's also why we like to keep it a secret. You are 75% more likely to get it done if you have someone holding you accountable. Even the act of telling someone else that you want to do it will put enough pressure on you to get it done. Number 4, make no promises, say no words that you don't have plans to act on, even if it's small. Because that person may have forgotten that you even said you were going to do it, but you didn't forget. And that is something that's very hard to do because we are naturally people pleasers. Write down everything that you want to do and ask yourself, is this now or is this for another season? Because sometimes we don't follow through just because we didn't really finish the thought. So for instance, you know, I hear people say, you know, I want to open up a nonprofit. Okay, when? Is this a now thing? Or is this a, hey, when I'm retired thing? Or is this a in 10 years thing? Or is it when my kids are grown thing? Or what have you? To where everything you say you want to do, get real about the time in which you want to do it. And so when that time comes, you're like, oh, this is the time I said I was going to do the nonprofit. Is it a 3 years from now thing? Or is it a now thing? And just answer the question. And when you answer that question, you won't feel any guilt behind the fact that you're not currently doing it. And the last one is take consistent actions daily towards what it is you're looking to achieve. You know, we talked about that earlier in the call, about writing out your roles and your writing out your roles and setting your schedule based on that. But you'd be surprised at what happens when you just take action towards your goal every single day, even if it's a small action. A lot of times we disengage because we're so aware of everything that has to happen that we don't start the list at all. But if you just take small actions daily to getting there, you still begin to trust yourself more whenever it comes down to getting it done. Take small actions daily. Because remember, distrust comes from a lack of consistency. Consistency within your values versus what you do, what have you. Oh, I did say that was the last one, but that was a lie. The last point is decide who you're going to be. And if it's for your business, decide what your business stands for and make the choice to be that person daily. Some of this distrust and inconsistency comes from the fact that we just haven't made a decision as to who we're going to be. Like your essence is your essence, but every day you get to decide who you're going to be. Are you going to be the person that follows through with what they say they're going to do? Are you patient? That doesn't mean that you'll never lack patience, but I'm saying like, you know what, I'm going to be a patient person. And all you have to do to be that person is to make the decision to not lose your patience and to be patient daily. Right? A lot of times I have to say, I'm going to handle people with kindness and, and just being nice and what have you. Why? I have to make that decision daily because I'm naturally an aggressive person. I don't mean aggressive like I like to fight or whatever, but just like, you know what I'm saying? So, and I tend to handle problems and handle conversations aggressively or very directly, let's say that, right? So I have to make a decision daily to handle people with a softer touch. It doesn't fight the urge for me to be aggressive, right? But it's still there. So make decisions about who you're going to be daily. And then how you make these changes amongst your team is literally going through the same things with your team and saying, hey, what have we said that we haven't followed through with? Deciding who you're going to be. Have we created ceilings, within our business that we just created, right? And go through the same list and just go through the actions of fixing these things just as a group and teaching your people how to follow through with what they say they're going to do, how to make sure their values are in alignment with their actions every day. Is my company values in alignment with what we do every day? And finding those inconsistencies and really doing the work of pointing them out, right? And being honest and then taking the steps and the actions to fix that. But it's the same exact thing that you have to do with yourself, you have to do with your team and with a group of people. But this is the key that most leaders forget is you cannot ask your team to do something in which you have not done. The word is monkey see, monkey do, not monkey say, monkey do. Right? People are open to doing the work that they see you're open to doing as well. So any questions, comments, concerns? And I like that, and I'm still gonna, if you missed the beginning portions, I'm gonna post the replay in the group as well. And then if you've joined the group, remember everything that we do in the group stays in the group. And I love that our group is small right now. So and this call is as well, so we can share and go back and forth as much as possible. But otherwise, that was all I had.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any questions? No, I'm going to send out a workbook.
Okay.
So if anything you're not saying in the group, I want you to fill out the workbook and then send it to me. So that way, and Cynthia, you still have to finish your vision course.
Okay.
Do it. And what I'm telling you, I do it every single year and it corrects so much.
And that's my problem, is being consistent. And that's something that I'm working on, is being consistent and doing it daily.
Well, even if you can't do it daily, right? Even if you just said, look, I'm gonna just knock the whole thing out.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
I'm the person to where there's certain times where it's like, okay, I'm gonna do a little bit at a time. But then there's times where I'm just like, I'm just gonna knock this out. And if you knock it out, you'll be done in a very short period of time. It's only about maybe an hour and 30 minutes worth of videos. The hardest part are the exercises.
Okay,
So you can knock it out.
okay.
If doing it daily doesn't work, then just knock it out.
I'll do that.
Yes. All right, well, and Olivier, I'm gonna send you the link to where you can do the vision too. Because that may be part of the problem is you have to get really, 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 really specific about what it is you want to accomplish.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you guys. Enjoy your Saturday.
You too.
All right, bye.
Bye.